If you're not editing video podcasts in DaVinci Resolve, I don't know what to tell you. You're missing out. Today, I'm going to walk you through the process of building out a preset that will allow you to show a grid of clips on screen at the same time. This is kind of like the gallery view on a Zoom meeting, and it can be expanded to fit as many clips as you want. We will be using DaVinci Resolve Fusion for this, and this is kind of an intermediate project, I'd say, although the node graph looks more complicated than it actually is, since we'll be repeating the same steps a few times. I think this is a great way to get to know the Fusion page and really unlocks the power of Fusion, so follow along and learn. All right, let's jump into it. So here we are in DaVinci Resolve. This is the edit page, and I'm starting out with a timeline with just the clips synced up that I want to arrange into a grid. I want to get into the Fusion stuff as quickly as possible, so to do that, let's just duplicate the 4 clips that we want to arrange into a grid, right-click, create a new Fusion clip, and open that in the Fusion page. All right, I want to start from scratch, so I'm going to delete all of these merge nodes and that background node. And I'm going to be building kind of left to right here, and so I'm just going to get these clips, these media in nodes like that. This is kind of a process you could follow, like if you had 5 or 6 or 3 clips, you could just kind of keep building out left to right. I found that flow to make the most sense for me. So if you have experience with Fusion, you'll know sometimes that you'll want to set the resolution of your composition to be consistent, especially when you're combining different clips in here. And to do that, you use a background node. Check it out. It's 1920 by 1080. That's great. All of our clips happen to be 1920 by 1080 already, but I want to build out a preset that will allow me to plug in any clip, no matter its resolution, and work with this flow. So let's drag out 4 merge nodes. And I'm going to plug this background node into the background input for each of these nodes, and then plug each clip into the foreground node. The foreground input, rather. And voila. We just see the last one. That's all right. We'll get there. We're going to make a kind of merge node sandwich. We'll be doing stuff in the flow between these merge nodes, but for now, we're just going to make 4 more merge nodes. I'm going to arrange this just so we can see what's happening here a little bit better. Let's connect all these in here. Send this to the output. Nice. We'll make another background. Make sure you set your alpha on this background to 0 here. This will all eventually make sense. Because it's kind of in this space here where we will be doing most of our work. All right, so let's build a rectangle that will drive our mats and our outlines for all these clips. Let's do Shift Space to bring up this Select Tool dialog box and search S Rectangle. And in order to actually integrate the rectangle with the rest of our footage, let's do Shift Space S Render. S stands for shape, and we're actually going to render that shape. Let's look at what we got. Look at that. It's a beautiful rectangle. We will adjust this plenty as we go, so don't worry about these settings for now. I'm just going to kind of put it into a smaller rectangle shape right now. I'm going to up the corner radius just a tiny bit. We'll come back to this. Now we want each of our speakers to show up in a little box, and that's what this box is. And we're going to use this box as a mat. And so let's bring out a mat control and drop that into the flow for each speaker. We're going to use this box as that mat. Let's pipe that into the garbage mat input for each of our speakers here. And so if you view what that looks like here at the end, it's actually the opposite of what we want. And so I'm going to invert the color of that mat. And to do that, I'm going to select the S render node, shift space, invert color, and make sure that I do invert alpha. Nice. And so now each of our speakers is appearing in this little box. You can't really tell because they're all stacked on top of each other, but that's what we're going to tackle in the next step. All right, let's place our speakers into position using a transform node. After the mat control, let me just drop a transform node into each of the flows here. And since I've done this before, I kind of know what the math is going to end up being. But basically, just mess around with this until you get an evenly spaced grid the way you want it. I'm going to set mine on like the thirds of the screen. I want 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And so now I'm going to go back and revisit this rectangle that I started. I'm just going to shrink this until there's a little bit of space between each of our speakers here. And zoom in. If you want there to be a corner, you can set that to 0. I like a little bit of roundedness. And so now we've got our grid of speakers, but we need to actually adjust the size of each of the speakers. And we can just use that in that first merge node. I'm going to scale this down, hop into the middle of the composition just for a little bit of a spot check. Looking pretty good. I might size up this host a little bit more, so we're about even in the frame. Maybe move this host down a little bit. Nice. Move me down a little bit too. And I'm adjusting that within this merge node, the first one for placement and sizing. I'm going to jump ahead to the end of our flow, add a transform here, and scale this all up so we take up more of the screen. Very nice. So the hard part is done. This is pretty extensible if you want to keep adding people into rows here. But I want to do a few more things, some stylistic things, and I hope you'll stick around because it works really well in this node-based layout. I want to add an outline to each of the speakers' squares here. And I'm going to do that by using the same rectangle that we used for the mats. Let's grab ourselves an S outline node. Pipe that in there. You can see, okay, there's a little bit of an outline. And we're actually going to render that. So we need another S render. And we're going to merge that before each speaker's transform node. So let's grab 4 more merge nodes. And so that seems to be pretty thick. Let's just bring down that thickness until it's just a slight, subtle stroke. Nice. And so you can see this is affecting all of them. We don't need to make a new outline for each speaker. We could just drive it using the same rectangle that drove our mat. And again, we can still change this if we want it to be more of a square vibe. Want it to be a little bit wider. It's all procedural. That's the magic of these nodes. Let's do some finish polishing stuff. Let's merge everything that we've done over a background. So let's put this into the background input, this into the foreground input, and that into our media out. And we can make our background kind of whatever we want. I think it's kind of fun to make a gradient here. Let's get a nice light blue up here maybe. And down here, maybe like a dark purple. All right. And I want to add like a drop shadow for everything we've done here, but I want to make that quite a bit less prominent. And so boom, now all you have to do is every time you edit your podcast, do all of this stuff in Fusion. Isn't it great? Okay, just kidding. You obviously don't have to do all of this work every single time that you edit a podcast, even though it's not that bad, but I wouldn't want to do it every single time. You want to save this as a preset. Save this as a macro, a group, the way that they describe it here in DaVinci Resolve Fusion world. I'm going to select everything that I don't want to do every single time. I'm going to right click, macro, create macro. Let's call this pod grid 4. And I recommend saving this as a group, because that way, and just save it where, yeah, in your macros folder. And that way, and close that, when you bring it out, everything is clear. We're starting from scratch here. Do shift space, what do I call it? Pod grid 4. Yeah. You can, it's saved as a group, and so you can do Command E or Control E and expand and still have access to all of your controls there. I am not super sure why it kind of mixes up who's 1, 2, 3, and 4. It doesn't matter that much to me. Just like switch this until it's right. There, very nice. And that's all you need to do next time you've got a podcast going. And then you can open this up and, of course, just change the position for each of your speakers so it fits, because it'll be just slightly different every recording. But you don't have to go through and rebuild all of this every single time, since you've got it saved as a group. And isn't that nice? Oh, wow.